Ocean waves crash upon a beach and a logo appears that reads Splashbox Marketing, LLC.
Hello, everybody. My name is Juliana Hale.
Juliana Hale, a long blonde-haired woman in a brown shirt sits and speaks in a music studio.
And I work for Splashbox Marketing, which is a full-service creative ad agency and a 508 and ADA compliance services firm. And today I am joined by Marc Safman from Safman Consulting, and he is also a Splashbox Marketing ambassador for outreach to the Hard of Sight community. And we are here to talk about the National Disability Employment Awareness Month, just to bring some awareness to the month, as the name says. So, Marc, I would love if you would just start off by giving me a background about yourself and your work before we dive into the questions.
Marc Safman, a light-skinned African-American man in a light green shirt sits in front of a pink and blue backdrop and speaks into the camera.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Juliana. I just want to admit, the captions are being done here by Steno Captions. Um, uh, my name is Marc Safman, and I'm a light-skinned African American with short black hair, slightly graying at the temples here, and brown eyes, wearing a green shirt, background, a purple background, and I've got my windows blocked off here with a peach background. Um, I had brain surgery in 1986, and I'm deaf in my right ear. They took out an acoustic aroma at Johns Hopkins University Thanksgiving week. And after the surgery, my vision and hearing kept changing. So I did get through, college. Um, I did have to drop some classes, and then I started working. I started out as a paralegal, working on real estate and litigation, and then moved into financial crimes compliance, anti-money laundering. Which is terrifically engaging work, particularly with sanctions. It's current events applied, and just really it's human judgment. There's a lot of investigation, and you trust your hunches. It's fantastic work. Well, I had done most of my career before the technology with pen and paper. So I had to convince a lot of people with interviews to write things out for me because I still think I hear and see perfectly. The reality of the matter is I don't. I've had to interview with pen and paper, and I've faced a lot of challenges just going through networking. Trying to. I mean, it's really hard to persuade people in financial, any business, anywhere, to get them to write things out, and that is really, really, it's like distressing because you see the Bureau of Labor Standards reporting every year. In February, they do their annual reporting, and they always cite like 3/4 of the disabled population are not participating in the labor force, and there's a reason for that. We have too many ineffective programs. You can't be in business in the 21st century without an internet, a website, and that was I've learned the criticality of website accessibility and document accessibility to go hand in hand. And it's amazing that you have all these sustainability standards ignoring disabilities for the most part, and you have businesses all just ineffective and unaware how to make accommodations.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I am so honored to be interviewing you, and I'm very inspired by the work that you do in the disability community. And I'm very looking forward to talking about exactly what you're talking about. Just making sure that the accessibility community has the ability to network and work. And so I would love to just dive right into that. So the official slogan for National Disability Employment Awareness Month is access to good jobs for all. What does this mean to you, and what does that look like?
That is a good question, and it's a great slogan. And they always pick very good slogans, but it's a slogan, unfortunately. What I found, earlier this month, I went to a big forecasting event by a major accounting firm, and they had offered you could go on site or you could work watch virtually, and they had great presentations. I had a lot of problems accessing CART. I had to explain to them what CART was, And then, I mean, they finally set it up. But we had the presentations, the main presentations were on one site. Afterwards, after that session was over, we had a break for lunch. And then there was going to, each office location had their own little in-person presentation. And there was no cart for the second half. And I was kind of like, well, what's wrong? And they hadn't scheduled it. So they had it for the first part, but not the second part. And I'm thinking, just getting it when I got on site, like there was challenges setting up the cart. And then when I found the cart, um, this is
Mark holds up a tablet device showing real-time captions scrolling by in large font.
steno captions here is providing. This is the stenographer. There's another style of cart called speech writing, voice writing, and the captions here are appearing natural and they're very easy to read. And I can adjust because I am deafblind. I do like it drop. Can you see the drop down menu? It's kind of like you have a wonderful amount of options, so you can change the fonts, and that's critical for the deafblind because I mean my vision gets tired. I want to change the fonts, but like if I were working with my tablet, but if I wanted to watch this on my phone, I could, but I would have to change the font size. Access for all really means that companies are aware of how to make accommodations, and right now, the majority of them are not. There's a lot of laws out there talking about the good faith, the interactive process, or people are aware that you need to make accommodations. But and the EEOC has wonderful guidance about accommodations. At the last year, the EEOC published visions and hearing specific guidance, but they provided guidance. These are examples. They keep saying interactive process. The interactive process for people with other challenges might be relatively simple, just might need to modify space for an environment. But when you're dealing with assistive technology, it becomes very, very specific. And there's no real interactive process. Uh, the EEOC has yet to really say, please make sure that when you start your interactive process, if the person is looking for assistive technology, make sure you bring in someone who has technology experience because it really is too much to expect a human resources as recruiter to understand uh, the difference, between cart or full screen magnification, braille ready formats. Just it's too much to expect the HR pro to understand that. And unfortunately, companies don't have written guidance. They don't necessarily take accessibility seriously. They don't treat it as critical to their mission. So they have websites, but they don't have accessibility governance to really holistically look at how the organization is, the documents they're producing, what they're doing. So you have a lot of just the whole process of looking for a job and networking. If I want to download white papers or information about a company, I want to look at a quarterly report or something, an annual report. That document might not be accessible. Or I know for me, I have I need to print out everything because it is all even with full screen magnification doesn't necessarily help with the blurriness. Yeah. I have let me see here. I have these wonderful reading glasses, and I'm basically blind in my right eye. But these reading glasses, I mean, they don't work with pixels. There's always going to be screen glare, and the laws, the programs, they're ineffective. There's a lot of goodwill out there, but they, it's like, look, you're not being effective in your programs. You're not really like the business administration, the tax credits that are out there. They're not being taught by the chambers of commerce. They're not being taught by the SBA. There's no real emphasis on creating that access to the job in the first place. Why the sensory challenges are so critical because our vision and hearing, you need to have an accessible website. And that means that you're going to think about document accessibility. You're going to think about how you can incorporate the technology. I mean, with HTML, with WCAG, bolt-on technology, the cart. I know the stream text, the image descriptions. It's easier to just add on that to a web, WCAG website. The widgets, the overlays that falsely claim that they are, covering, making things accessible that they're not, and they know it, and it's, so you have all these poor small companies just being ripped off, investing in a solution that doesn't really help. And the lawsuits are phenomenally bad, where it's like, look, we just need to change the laws, but that is necessary for employment too, because it's like the way thinking holistically, you think sustainably, and that creates the access that begins to create the access, because then it's like, well, how do you plan your networking events? I mean, it boils down to networking. People need to be able to network, and you need access to invitations. The invitation needs to be readable. You need to understand where you can request accommodations if you need them. And the organizations need to have, they need to have guidance and guidelines written so that people understand that, hey, you know what, if we get an accommodation request, this is what we need to do. And the companies really haven't thought about that written guidance, and that is one of the big drawbacks, is that they keep thinking that this is new, this is brand new, and it's kind of like, it's not brand new. The technology cart has been around since the 1990s. Right after the Windows DOS, the first screen reader software was introduced, like in 1988. So the products have been with us for forever, and the awareness. I know that the Microsoft and Apple have done a lot with incorporating accessibility features that are wonderful. I mean, when I have my let me just flip to this. Like, now I have Google Live Transcribe that I can put on my phone or mobile devices, which I can do, and it works pretty well. I mean, like for one-to-one communication. But what they have done here, um, they have also built in, these accessibility features so that the yellow and black keys. I mean, can you see that? Okay, yeah, that yellow and black keys. That's a basic accessibility feature that is critical. And I mean, you couldn't get that. You had to wait for the technology to advance. But that is so access to all really is that people would understand that accommodations. Yes, you need to make them. It's no big deal. It's very simple, and they are. I mean, it's something that is unique, because people are not. My deaf blindness is a lot different from someone else's. Check with the people, and the companies don't understand that you need to, like, well, do testing. I mean, I had a lot of remote work jobs. You have to test a lot of the equipment, because people think that, oh, it's the same thing. And it's like, no, no, no. I know that, the remote work, the full screen magnification that I have on my desktop computer. If I move to a remote work environment, I might need an extra graphics card for my laptop, for laptop work, and people don't necessarily know that. It's like, no, you have to test everything, and then once you test, then you make the selection about your accommodation. It's not something that you can say, okay, I'm going to use all this. So it really is. It's about the awareness that you access to the job, access for all really means that the businesses understand that, hey, just because you need accommodations, it's no big deal. We're going to figure out the technology. Let's just focus on what do you need, and let's find how do we implement it quickly. Companies just really need to be more aware of what is access, and then respect it, because it's kind of like, look, you have a lot of talented people out there, and there's nearly 3/4 of the disabled population is not participating in the labor force. That means that something is not working, something is ineffective, our programs are ineffective.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is there's just like a lack of knowledge and awareness as far as businesses go into how they can accommodate. So, how can we do our part to raise awareness? And what is the most effective way to reach employers and get them to value the human impact over the financial cost of accessibility, but also to take away kind of that fear of lack of knowledge or just the overwhelm of feeling like tackling this accessibility issue is huge? How can we kind of empower companies to feel like they know the next steps to take? And so, how can we raise awareness to really see that through to make effective change?
Juliana, well, I think it's about innovation. I mean, like, what is the internet? Um, Email created by someone who was deaf, essentially. The typewriter. I read an article from Hale Gerben, who's the blind woman who graduated from Harvard Law School, and Haven's our deaf blind rock star. But she pointed out, she wrote an article a few years ago where she was talking about like the typewriter created by blind people because of love. The countess, she could not necessarily dictate her love letters to a mere mortal,
Mm.
so her lover and her created a typewriter so that they could type their message, type their letters to each other, so that they wouldn't have to, to share information. So the typewriter, email, communication, sensory challenges. We have to figure out how to do things. The touch screen also comes from people who have challenges. I mean, like, so innovation is. I mean, businesses are like, look, our innovation, every input is critical, and I think that is one of the things where it's like, what are the businesses losing by not reaching out and dealing with our companies. I mean, like I mean, there's a big presidential election, and I was looking at the Rutgers polls, and they were saying, you know what, the hearing challenges, we have a higher rate of participating in the polls than people who are not disabled. So it's kind of like we are the leaders here. It's so, but there's it's kind of like what are we missing out on? What innovation are we missing out on by not including us? And that is something that I think is critical. Where people are kind of like, oh, you mean you just need an interpreter?
Mm.
So what? Like, if that's all you need, or you have a guide dog, no big deal. These are things that I think that um and we need to quit looking at discrimination. I mean, right now, all our laws, the emphasis is on determining discrimination. So, like, I'm in New York City, or if I need, I mean, like, Jan only works with people, primarily works with people who are already employed in employers. The focus needs to be on how do we help people who facilitate employment of people who have challenges, who might need accommodations. And in other countries, you can turn to the government, and the government will help facilitate accommodations. But if I'm in New York City, so if I have a problem when I want to go to a networking and need accommodation, the only thing I can do is file a lawsuit, a complaint with the New York City Human Rights or the New York State Division on Human Rights, because the EEOC does not consider networking employment. And the way that these complaints work, they don't necessarily help you obtain the accommodation. I know the New York City Human Rights Commission will say, "Oh, come back in 3 months and talk to one of our employer attorneys about the situation." I'm kind of like, no, I want to go to an event next week. I have an interview next week. I need help now, and our focus is on uh, determining discrimination. It's not on facilitating the accommodations that people need to be employed. And that is something that, I mean, like, the 55A letter that New York State has, where you prove to the state that you're disabled, and that allows you to, it makes it easier for you to apply to a state job or to a city job or to there's a similar thing on the federal level that doesn't help you get the accommodations. I mean, I know from an attorney, a federal attorney that I know who wanted to work for one of the federal agencies. He got hired they gave him a building that he was going to work in. Turns out to be inaccessible for him, and it's kind of like, and then he was like, "Well, I just want to work in a different building," and they were giving him problems with that. It's kind of like that. We need to focus on the accommodations, making it easy to obtain accommodations, and help the people, because I mean the alternative is litigation that's completely avoidable. People know that it's ineffective, and there's a lot of people who profit, lawyers who profit off the ineffectiveness, and they don't want to implement solutions. Like with website accessibility, you have a lot of law firms not necessarily wanting to see the laws change because it's very profitable to make these lawsuits. But for employment wise, we have a situation where businesses don't necessarily have an understanding of the accommodations. They hire so few people who are blind, and they figure that their disability attention is, they think that, oh, you're disabled. They don't necessarily understand how you're disabled, what challenges you face. And the emphasis really needs to move on recognizing that everyone has a different challenge, and then figuring out the accommodations and facilitating the accommodations, making it, because the emphasis on uh oh, you've been discriminated, so I want to work, I want a job, I don't care about being discriminated. That's wonderful, but I think it's 2025 almost. We can go beyond that. you know
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree, and my heart goes out to you in this community because it makes me so sad that you're not being s no, you're not being seen as a singular person, but rather as a group, and that, kind of like profit margins are being prioritized over humans. And you kind of touched on my next question a little bit, but kind of to go into it deeper, how has accessibility issues affected your employment in the past, and what has been the biggest hurdle when seeking and maintaining employment?
I mean, first of all, the technology had to improve, and I had to learn about it, because I mean, well, 1994, when we were just trading email messages, we would sit in the smack lab at Knox College, the basement of the science building, BitNet. We had a row of the email set up, and but the only way you could email was sending messages to the person across the table from you. So it wasn't like email was a big thing. I mean, it was, but the technology has dramatically improved. And that as the problem is that the awareness has not improved really. There's built-in features now from Microsoft. I mean, I work in financial services on legal settings, so there's always been Microsoft. And Microsoft way back when, you always had to bring in software to do full screen magnification. Huge hurdle. I mean, I have I tell people that I need it, and I've gone to jobs. I've been hired. I go to the place, show up on the first day, and suddenly, um, there's a problem. I mean, I've had interviews where interviewers. I've been in interviews where it's going okay, and then the branch manager of a bank comes in, and asks the question, and the people say, "Oh, no, no," they let the person know that I don't hear very well, and they slide the pad down to the person, and the person looks at the pad, looks at me, starts like like shaking their head, and then leaves the room. And it's kind of like, I think the interview is not going on. But you I've gone to major companies. You tell people that you need accommodations. You go into the interview, and then suddenly they say, "Hey, let's do a video conferencing. Let's do a teleconference call with our partners over here." And I'm like, you know what? I mentioned to the recruiter that I needed these accommodations. If you're going to plan on these things, it's no big deal. But there are some things that you need to do to, they're like, oh, we'll just reschedule. I never hear from them. I've had situations where I've been working on a job where our client, they introduced a cloud computing software into their environment, and we worked it out. I mean, like the software, I was just using the built-in full screen magnification software, and the cloud computing did something, and I was working remote, and the only thing that worked was to bring in software. But they did it like that, and it was wonderful. I mean, like that's that's the corporation you need. I mean, they could have just fired me, but they because when you're a consultant working as a temp, you basically are hired at will, and they can just say your assignment's ended. There's not much you can do. So it's something that you focus on doing your job. I had problems putting the key in the lock one time, and um, my coworker just put it in. It was no big deal. You know, the way that people just did things is a very big thing. I've had other places where people are like, "Oh, I'm on a call," and I was kind of like, "Well, I need this accommodation in order to like continue with this assignment." And there are challenges where it's clear that companies are too often just say fire, and they're like, "What are they gonna do? Oh, they're gonna sue us. So what?" And I think it's extremely unfortunate that multinationals would prefer to be sued. The employment bar, the people don't understand the technology. The lawyers defending the companies don't understand the technology. I mean, I know that because I've kind of like, I have had to write all my own legal papers. I'm beating them. I'm out lawyering them. I'm reviewing their cases, and I understand what they're thinking, but it's kind of like, you know what? You don't understand the technology. Let's talk about teaching employers how easy it is to access the built-in accessibility features. There are a lot of tax credits out there that make help companies make these accommodations, and it's much better to have. I mean, Jan points out that look, when you retain your employee, you keep a happy employee, they work better, they're more productive. You don't have to spend money to train someone new. You don't have to lose that institutional knowledge. And it's something that companies really need to shift their emphasis on. Oh, fire, and instead of like looking at it, they need to say, how can we keep this talented person? You know, I have I have this speech to text app. I have it on my phone and I use it when I'm out. That's my primary because and I have been fired for using it, which is mind-boggling. And I mean, but it's a lack of awareness. If your website's inaccessible, it's no good. If your documents are inaccessible, they're no good. And you have a lot of documents that people think, oh, we have artificial intelligence. That artificial intelligence, I know that there's a lot of automatic the programs that are used to detect document accessibility. And it's kind of like, well, you have automated reviews of document accessibility. You're going to miss 80% of the problems. I mean, you might pick up some the art the automatic review programs might pick up some of the challenges, but the ones that really matter in order to have an accessible document, you really have to have the manual review. And when you're looking at sustainability, there's a big sustainability initiative out there. The ESG, the Disability, Diversity, and Equity Inclusion, but they are largely ignoring the disability factor, the accessibility factor. I mean, the accessibility is the roadmap for sustainability, and that is something that once companies become aware of that, it's like that's how you're going to like facilitate inclusion of more people. You're going to have more efficient workers. You're going to have more people who are saying, "Hey, we have a diverse range of talent here, and we're actively recruiting people for whatever the challenge." Like right now, you have like they have autism at work programs, and they're saying, "Oh, we're hiring this." They're signaling out people, and they're trying to like, "Oh, you're hiring certain types of disabilities." companies really should focus on hiring everyone, and
Mhm.
website accessibility and document accessibility are the ways that you do that, because it's holistic review of your business operations, all the documents that you create, and that for hearing and vision, that but we cause our challenges cause businesses to focus on how to uh, effectively communicate. They know they're operating effectively because they have incorporated the sort of website and document accessibility needs into their operating, into their operating procedure.
I, as someone who spends my days making documents accessible, I can definitely attest to artificial intelligence not necessarily hitting the mark every time and missing so many of the genuine issues. So I absolutely feel for you with that because I know people are starting to default to AI. And a few things you said just now really, really stood out to me. You said when you were speaking of companies that you worked for that you felt did great with accessibility, you said you felt free to do your job and you felt like you were a part of the company. And that's something that I believe everyone should have the right to feel in their place of work. You obviously are very educated in this topic, and you shouldn't have to be forced into litigation and to be your only own advocate. And so you're obviously very educated and are able to out lawyer these people and um, outbrain these people per se. But I worry for the people just entering the workforce, like a disabled 18-year-old who's just going into the world, who maybe doesn't have the life experience and knowledge and education that you do. I'm wondering what resources do you wish you knew about earlier on that you would want to share with disabled youth entering the workforce that, feel like really helped you to advocate for yourself and to get opportunities that could maybe help them that they may not be aware of.
For people, I mean, for people who have sensory challenges, you really need to understand the built-in features for Microsoft and Apple, make them work for you. And you really do need to keep up with uh, the apps, but really reach out to the companies that might have the apps that you like, and don't hesitate to reach out to them and say, hey, you know what, I am blind, deaf, blind. I like your product, but I really think you doing this. You want to partner with companies. I mean, if I had known about Cart, how easy it was to access Cart. I mean, I always thought Cart was well, it is really hard to see Cart, like to get it in action. For companies make it very hard to actually request accommodations. So that is one big challenge, is that you really need to go your professional associations. These professional networking organizations are still very hostile or not aware of how to make accommodations. I mean, some of the biggest challenges that I faced with networking is just like these companies flat out refuse. Chambers of commerce, your places where you would naturally network, we're looking for, they are reluctant. They don't understand how to do it. They figure that, hey, no, we're gonna just say no, because what are they gonna do? One of the biggest challenges for sensory challenges, if you have print challenge, if you want to pursue a career in science and math, the fact that math textbooks are so hard to obtain, it costs about $7,000 per textbook, and it takes several months to get it converted. And what you want to do, really, for sensory challenges, I mean, if you're blind or have learn Braille, because Braille, if your if your power goes out, if your battery dies, what are you gonna do? You need to understand Braille. Screen readers don't help you when your power's out. It's just that simple, and people really should be learning Braille if you are blind or low vision, because we know that people who know Braille tend to be employed more, and have better salaries. That's something that is one thing for young people, young blind individuals. I would just say you need to understand Braille quickly, because it is critical, and it is wonderful information source. I mean, people will always be able to communicate with you. You can always learn how to make braille, with pinpricks with a stylus, because it is something that if your power goes out, you know you don't have any real communication, modes. It's not easy to communicate with you. But I think that have your personal accommodation that understand them very well, and be ready to say, this is how you do it, and have a range of options, because some things people don't understand that. Like I have people who don't understand captioning, the the captioning for a card or real-time text. Real-time text describes open captions. This is the open caption format, and then the closed captioning format is just what people are familiar with, that scrolls across the bottom of the screen. So you need to understand your technology on the formatting. I mean, you need to be the expert of it, because you need to be able to understand, like, look, the captioning. This has stenography, so it's natural. It's appearing naturally. There's another style of cart with a voiceover, a voice writer's speech, it and automatic speech recognition software.
Mark once again holds up the tablet device displaying captions.
It tends to display the text in blocks of text. It's very, very difficult to read. So when you need to explain, so if we were using a Zoom right now, if we just had regular Zoom captioning, Zoom captioning is automatic speech recognition. It's not very good. It's ineffective, because it it spits out words, or the way that it presents the information. So if, like, the Martin Luther King speech, "I have a dream," with Zoom, you might see "I have," and then it will move up a line, and then you will just see the word "dream." It won't, the closed captioning for Zoom does not necessarily convey what the speaker has said. And you need to be able to explain to people that, hey, there's a reason why Zoom captioning or these closed captioning is ineffective. The way that the words are, just appear as blocks of text. That's very, very difficult to read. It's very difficult to read. And it is something that, if you use interpreters, if you need to be able to you have to feel comfortable to say, look, your interpreter, you're signing too fast. You need to slow down your signing, because I can't follow that. But it's something that you as a young person, you really need to understand the technology, and really do not be afraid to reach out to the CEO, whoever, I mean, and just say, look, this, you have a disability program. I'm disabled, but I'm here to work, and this is what I need. And I don't want to work in an accessibility position. I'm a financial analyst. I'm a doctor. I'm a plumber. I want to work at my job, what I want to do. I don't want to spend all day talking about accommodation. I want to focus on what I like doing, and that is something that young people just need to focus on. Learn your accommodations. Just pursue your career. If you want to do whatever the heck you want to do, know your technology, and go dream big and pursue it. Don't worry about it.
I love how you put that, and I hope that that really empowers the youth entering the workforce. And I agree that it comes down to human empathy and caring about people on a personal level. And not only are companies missing out on talented employees, but they're also missing out on a market, which you're illustrating. And so much of our population has these disabilities, and so we're, as you're saying, you're the makeup companies. There's blind people who want makeup, and so it's like making sure that we can get these things into those hands. And so I was wondering, is there a company that you think goes above and beyond for the disabled community and sets a great example of how to be an employer? Like maybe a company that you've worked for. I just wanted to spread like a little positivity as well.
It really does depend on the company. Again, I said I like BBVA, the way in the West LB, the way that these companies really, it was my coworker, or the fact that BBV sent out their tech person right there immediately, the way that they reacted and addressed the situation. They're kind of like, okay, hey, there's a situation, let's resolve it and move on. I think that that approach is critical because you feel like you're part of the team. I mean, I know that at West LB that made the big difference when the way people reacted. Hiring a blind person is still a big deal. Companies say, "Oh, we have a blind person." It's kind of like, "Oh, we have one blind person. That's wonderful." What about some other types of challenges that they don't have real commitment to engaging with disabled communities? I'm not impressed by corporate America. Like the fact that like Disability Inn has been around for 30, 40 years now. They have a couple hundred companies are involved. And I'm thinking, how many businesses are in America? Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe 5,000 or more publicly traded companies. Maybe. But you have thousands of businesses and they have a few hundred people, a few hundred businesses that are participating in disability. And that's like that we can do better.
I absolutely agree that we can do better. And I think I totally agree with what you're saying, where they're like, well, we hired one blind person. And it's like, this needs to be the norm, not like some big to do that they get like a pat on the back about. We need to be able to employ people equally. And so I agree with you. I'm also, after listening to what you're saying, I'm not impressed by corporate America either. And I think even I've learned so much during this interview. Like I noticed when you came on the screen, you described yourself, and I did not do that. So I learned that. I am a blonde woman with blue eyes and a brown shirt in a music studio, actually. And so I just hope you know that you're opening my eyes, and I'm dealing with accessibility on a daily basis. So I think, that's been incredible to hear your point of view and just ways that I can do my job better, but also to interact with people better. So I really appreciate your openness with that. And I was on the Department of Labor's website reading about this month, and I saw that they recommend disability mentoring days that explore hands-on programs, job shadowing and mentoring, as well as employee research groups, short for ERGs. And I was wondering, have you participated in a day like that, or do you have experience with these resource groups and kind of what your experience is if you have?
Fair enough. Thank you, Juliana. No, I think I have heard about employee resource groups. I have not. I've seen the DOL's website. I I've never known about the mentoring days and the people who are looking for jobs. Our employment rates for deafblind are 35.9%, and then for blind, it's not very good either. Leadership gap. These business resource groups are really marketing things. They don't necessarily help a company facilitate employment. They are really just PR things. They bring in a nice speaker, they'll do a little brown bag lunch thing. Oh, they talk about this, and then everyone's like, okay, we've ticked that box, then they go away. There's no real support for applicants. And the outreach, like there's a lot of specialized schools for the deaf and for the blind, or for people who might be disabled. Like we have the Viscardi School here out in Long Island on the border here from New York City. It's like right on the border for New York City and Long Island County. But there's schools for the deaf and blind. The businesses are not doing a lot of outreach. I know that Helen Keller National Center is the organization for the deaf blind in America. It's funded by an act of Congress. But we businesses still just don't understand that deafblind are unique, or that our challenges that people have. Your hearing and vision change over your life, and you just have you have different needs. But the businesses are afraid of us. They don't necessarily. They think that we can't see and hear, and it's kind of like no, no, no. I mean, even if we have limited vision and hearing, I mean, someone like Haben Gurma, Haben, I'm scared to go skydiving and surfing. Hey, even she put, it's kind of like, look, yeah, we're people, we're humans, and I think that the business resource group still kind of commodifies everyone and says, here's a disabled person, aren't they nice? They look just like us, but it doesn't necessarily say, well, what do they do? What do you do? I'm more impressed with, like, I mean, when you see people who have challenges, and it's like, oh, you're a doctor, you're a plumber. What do you do? Your skills, you're doing something. The fact that you are like farmer, agribility is a wonderful program where they help people who might have challenges stay, keep their farms, keep working on their farms, and they'll help modify the equipment. I mean, I know that there's a BHP, it's a big miner. They have a program where they have people who use wheelchairs. I mean, like I was talking, they have wheelchair users who work within the mine, on the mining site. It's like you can adapt jobs, and that's one thing people are kind of like, oh, what's a disabled person gonna do? They're not thinking about, like, we can do anything. It's a matter of accommodating and making the accommodations. And these resource groups, they don't really provide training for staff. They just really kind of like they bring people together. You have a nice event, like the company will, depending on your company, like for Nadine, for the month of Nadine, they'll have a nice event. They'll have some really, really nice hors d'oeuvres. They'll have a nice event. Everyone will dress up really nicely, and you'll hear some nice speeches or whatever. And it's kind of like, great, you've dressed up, you've hung out, you've boozed and schmoozed for the evening. That's wonderful. But the next day, well, there's still only like maybe, well, it's still nearly three-fourths of the disabled population doesn't participate in the labor force, and corporate America, business community hasn't figured out how to tap into our talented labor pool. So these resource groups really are kind of part of the problem. They aren't necessarily effective in facilitating disabled employment versus giving people the appearance, skim milk masquerading as cream when there's more to it.
I have to be honest, when I went on the website and read about those things that I asked about, I felt kind of that they were just little meetings where you eat hors d'oeuvres and then everybody goes about their lives normally. So that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I wanted a firsthand account of, like, are these groups actually effective? Because after reading through what we can do on the website, I just felt like it's not enough. And so I'm not surprised by your answer, actually. I think it just confirmed kind of my initial interpretation of it. And so hopefully, these kind of interviews and just advocacy groups can kind of go in and make genuine changes and more effective strategies for people actually in the workplace. So I really appreciate you sharing your opinion on those groups. And I think that's very helpful just to show, like, yeah, maybe they're trying in those ways, but we should try in these ways and maybe take a lead from the deaf blind community on how to implement those instead of just posting people in nice outfits with hors d'oeuvres. And so I was wondering as well, just to circle back to something you had mentioned about some people not being able to afford the tablets. I think that's a huge hurdle. And I was wondering if you know of organizations that help people with low income afford these resources, and kind of maybe if we could shout those things out if you do know them, just so that people know where to go if they have financial um, drawbacks in getting their accessibility needs met.
Yeah, but that is a big question. I mean, thank you for asking that, but it's something that America needs to move away from connecting support with wealth and income. I mean, if you look at Warren Buffett, I mean, what do we view as success in America? We expect people to want to be wealthy, or we admire the fact that, hey, you know what, you've invested, you've pursued a career, perfect, you're wealthy. The fact that you need supports to pursue your goals, your work, it shouldn't be, we shouldn't connect it. Right now, all of our government programs really require you to have no money. Like SSI basically says that you can't have more than $2,000 in the bank. There was one thing with the pandemic when they were making the pandemic payments. People had to spend a lot of money because they couldn't save the money. So our supports really are connected to um, our income and wealth. And right now, there's a lot of the organizations, uh, their income limited. They're asked, so it's really tricky that the people the technology. I mean, so if I needed to have a refreshable braille display, I have to connect that to my tablet or to my computer. Those refreshable braille displays cost a lot of money. They're like 3,500, 6,000. It's not unheard of. For you have your 2080, 40 cell refreshable braille display or note takers. They cost money, and it's something that these organizations, um, it's really problematic. The way that the for the deaf blind, the way that our national equipment fund works is income connected by the way that they operate the program. So if I lived with roommates, even if they are not related to me, the fact that they're my roommates, they would have to provide financial information to, and it's kind of like that. That's crazy. So you have a lot of like limitations of the way that the program for the I Can Connect program is currently operated, limits the amount of people who could actually participate in it. And when they introduced the I Can Connect program back in 2011 or 2012, they did it and they're kind of like, well, how many people are going to join? We don't know. And the program's overwhelmed because people are like, oh wow, because the technology is very, 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 the technology is the equalizer. We have a very limited number of captioners and interpreters. There's a shortage of, and it's something that it's a big jobs program where people could be working on, but the supports right now, no real good organization out there. I feel like it's very, very complicated to try and get. I say something like for math textbooks. I mean, like for math textbooks, $7,000 to get a math book, textbook converted. And then on top of that, I'm like, there's a wonderful, they have a braille display, refreshable display that called Condense. It's fantastic. It's specifically made for science and math. So you can put like a periodic table on the braille display. It's way cool. But getting one of these condensed tablets is very costly. So you have a lot of people who have every tech gadget up the wazoo. They have like 3 or 4, whatever, and then you have people who don't have anything. So the wealthy family background, you have a lot of options, and but if you don't have a lot of resources, disposable income, you have a lot of limited options, and it's very, very hard to qualify for the options because I mean, SSI, SSDI, everything is connected. Like SSDI limits your income, but SSI completely limits your wealth. And so they both limit your wealth, your possibility to. It is America needs to break that, to separate supports from income wealth. And until that's done, you're gonna have a big wealth gap where you're gonna have a lot of people. You're gonna have a few people who have way too much technology. They might call themselves influencers, and it's kind of like, look, you don't need all that technology. And I mean, it's nice to have, but it's like, do you really need? I mean, do you really need that many? No. And it's something that it's our approach. I mean, it's policy. It's the way that the government's approaching it. It's the way that people are approaching it. Like in Europe, they have the accessibility laws that they're implementing website accessibility now, so that the companies or even the smaller businesses still have to have website accessibility. They're implementing things like I know you're having to do disability reporting in your company reporting. There, the world is moving forwards to embracing accessibility. I would say American business is really in danger of like being left behind simply because we're not embracing the innovation that comes with accessibility. You're connecting humanity, you're making humanity human. I mean, accessibility is humanity.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And it seems that this really comes down to policy changes, awareness, and human connection. So I only have one more question for you. What is your hope for people with disabilities moving forward? And just if you have any other final thoughts on the topic that you'd like to share.
I think really for people who live with challenges, and I don't think of myself as disabled. I have challenges. They're identifiable. The solutions are identifiable. I think that we need more willingness to talk to people. We need to make solutions. And right now, that means you have to organization the different challenges. We're not talking to one another. There's not a lot of cross collaboration between deaf, blind people with wheelchair who use wheelchairs. It's something that there we need more collaboration, but it's something that I think that people um, get away from the disability identity. We're human. I don't have I'm people see me as black before they see me as disabled. And I think that our humanity, is something that I mean, it's focused on humanity. Disability is an artificial construct that says that, oh, you're disabled. That's kind of like that's like you're an alien being. Like you've been beamed down on the world. I'm a human. I have challenges, and I think that people need to embrace their challenges. Like there's just such a wide range of options out there. That doesn't mean that it there's not a one size fit all disabled identity because it really does depend on. I mean, disability is the only intersectional challenge out there because it is the only one that black, gender, race, age, economic status. I'm blind. I'm deaf blind. I'm a wheelchair user. Doesn't matter what your doesn't matter about your demographics. You face the same challenges as the next person who like we have those challenges. The disability identity is like it limits how people view people like me. We face challenges, and it's not a one size fit all thing. And that just using the word disability is like it's just loaded because they're like, oh, you're disabled, and it doesn't tell you how you could help me, and that barrier is something that you need to take away that artificial barrier and focus on, hey, I'm a human. These are my challenges. These are the solutions. Just focus on the solution. Focus on facilitating solutions so that we can focus on other things like enjoying the day.
I absolutely love how you put that. Definitely solution focused and just zeroing in on people as individuals instead of just groups. And I love the work that we at Splashbox do and that you do as well, because we are just headfirst into making documents and websites accessible. And I know that beyond awareness, it also comes down to resources. So I just wanted to add a call to action that if you are listening to this interview and your company needs help meeting the needs of their employees or their customers, to just please reach out to us and we can connect you to Splashbox Marketing Services to make your documents and your website accessible, as well as to you, Mark, because you're an incredible wealth of information and just been such a blessing to our company as a consultant. And I personally have just learned so much from this interview, and I am excited to go forth with this knowledge and just really apply that and be able to do better myself, but also help spread awareness. And because that sounds like exactly what we need is awareness and to have those important conversations. So I really appreciate you speaking with me and sharing your expertise and your personal experiences. And I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And so thank you so, so much.
Thank you very much, Julia, and thank you to send out captions here, Josh, but thank you for the captions. It's been really wonderful.
Absolutely, yes, and it was really, wonderful for me to see how that works, so I appreciate you kind of informing me of how the captions go about and how you read them.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Yeah, no,
That you
they
read.
are really helpful, and there's
Well, I hope you have a wonderful day.
thank you very much. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Ocean waves crash upon a beach, and a logo appears that reads Splashbox Marketing, LLC. It fades as more text appears reading splashbox.com, your source for out-of-the-box creative design and ADA compliance.